Welcome to another video, guys, on the Super Duper Football Show. Hope y'all are having a great day, and today we're going to talk about Week 1 power rankings for the NFL. We're going to go from worst to best, so we're going to start off with with the worst team in the power rankings, and for now that would be the Detroit Lions. The Lions I think the 49ers defense is just far too good for the Lions. Even though their offense isn't brutally bad, I mean, they still have TJ Hawkinson, they have DeAndre Swift, and Jared Goff I guess he's decent. I think he is. But the defense of the 49ers is just too powerful, I think. Next up, Houston Texans versus the Jacksonville Jaguars in Week 1. I mean, the Texans' defense is just absolutely horrible. Their best player is Justin Reed, and he's good. Justin Reed is good, no doubt about that. But seeing as that's their best player on defense is very concerning, I think. And even on offense, Tyrod Taylor is filling in for this year. I would think so. They do have Brandon Cooks, which Tyrod Taylor should have no problem throwing the ball to Brandon Cooks, but it's the Texans, man. It's just the Texans. Next up is the Jets. They play the Panthers in Week 1. Rookie quarterback and Zach Wilson. Arguably best receiving threat is just Corey Davis. They do have Keelan Cole. They have Elijah Moore, who they drafted in the second round, I think. They do have some people, and they have Michael Carter and Tevin Coleman at running back, not particularly good. And their defense isn't really great, except for Marcus May and Quinnen Williams. Otherwise, it's not that great. Eagles up next, playing Atlanta in Week 1. The Eagles have no receivers, man. Devontae Smith, who they drafted in the first round this year, is their best receiver, arguably. And that's concerning. Jalen Hurts, Miles Sanders, Devontae Smith, and a good offensive line, but that's it. No more wide receivers. Dallas Goedert and Zach Ertz are fine. It's just such a lackluster offense at this point, with the exception of Miles Sanders and Zach Ertz, who has been great throughout his career, by the way. The Eagles' defense, it has talented players, but most of the players are starting to age. So that might be a concern for the future, but I think they're going to be pretty low this week in the power rankings. Ahead of them is the Atlanta Falcons. They play the Eagles this week. Matt Ryan, Calvin Ridley, Kyle Pitts, period. That's it. Their defense isn't that great either. One could argue that they're lower than the Eagles for this week. I just put them one spot higher than the Eagles. I just felt that Calvin Ridley and Kyle Pitts are such a dangerous receiving duo. Even with Matt Ryan at the helm, he's not bad. Matt Ryan isn't bad. But their defense is just a little bit bad. So I think this is appropriate for them at number 28. Next up, Jacksonville Jaguars playing the Houston Texans in Week 1. I do think that the Jaguars have a lot of potential for the future. And Trevor Lawrence, DJ Chark, Laviska Shenault, James Robinson, of course, and not a bad offensive line even. A pretty good offensive line, I'd say. But the defense, however, is where it starts to drop off quite a bit. The Jags' defense, ever since they traded Jalen Ramsey to the Rams, which I just realized that's good. That's good use of words there. Jalen Ramsey to the Rams. But, anyways, ever since they traded Jalen Ramsey, however, their their defense has just started to fall apart in general. So, I mean, we all know they went 1-15 last year, worst record in the league. So 27, I think, is appropriate for the Jaguars. Right ahead of them is the New York Giants, going over to actually no, hosting the Denver Broncos, um, in East Rutherford. Uh, Daniel Jones lackluster, receiving core lackluster. Kenny Galladay is fine, but he's suffering with an injury. Which, if he can't play Week 1, then that'll put Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton up top. To lead the receiving threat. And Evan Ingram, I think, is hurt. And Kyle Rudolph, I think, is hurt. Is he? Are they? I think they're both hurt. So I don't know what they're gonna do at tight end. And their defense, the Giants' defense is like very underrated, man. Highlighted by James Bradbury. You got Leonard Williams. You got Dexter Lawrence. You mean the defensive line is quite stacked, actually. They have James Bradbury. They even have Jabril Peppers, who isn't bad. Who isn't a bad option. So, if Daniel Jones can prove himself this year, they might earn a spot higher. But at this point in time, the Giants are just not good enough to make it like above number 26. And the Broncos are coming up next, obviously playing the Giants. Their team isn't actually bad. Like, it isn't horrible. With a pretty good offense and with Teddy Bridgewater leading the force. I mean, he's decent. He's not the best quarterback ever, of course not. But he'll get the job done for you, I think. Cortland Sutton is there. Jerry Jeudy is there. Noah Fant suffering with a little bit of an injury, I think. There's Albert Ekwegbunom to back up Noah Fant if he's ever hurt. And there's also KJ Hamler, and who isn't that bad either. So the offense is looking fine. The defense looking just as good. Justin Simmons is there. I mean, that's really the highlight of the defense there, Justin Simmons. But they did lose Jarrell Casey, I think, in the offseason. But that doesn't majorly deteriorate their odds of being at least a decent team. And they still have Von Miller. So, Carolina Panthers up next, playing the New York Giants this week. Excuse me, the New York Jets in Week 1. The Giants, man. Carolina Panthers. the main. Oh, I just realized the Panthers playing the Jets, so Sam Darnold will have his revenge game against the Jets in Week 1. That should be a fun one. Should be a fun one, I think. Anyways, on the topic of the Panthers, if Sam Darnold can prove himself this year, or at least in the first few weeks, give the Panthers staff like a gist of what he really can do, then the Panthers are set up for success. They have probably, arguably the best running back in the NFL in Christian McCaffrey. They have quite an incredible receiver duo in DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson. Of course, they lost Curtis Samuel, but those two are still pretty good. Of course, picked up Darren Arnold in free agency. Not much to be excited about there. Offensive line highlighted by Taylor Moton at right tackle. It's not a bad offense, and defensively, I think this defense is more like a defense set up for the future. Because Jeremy Chin, Brian Burns, so many other players that most of them are set up for the future. Most of them are young and talented and ready to go, fresh. They're fresh and they're ready to play. So I have the Carolina Panthers at number 24. And next up, my personal favorite team, the Bengals, at number 23, playing the Minnesota Vikings today. Uh, the Vikings do have an underrated defense, but I think Joe Burrow and crew can get it done. Potentially, I think the Vikings do have a little bit of a better chance to win this game, but with with Burrow, Higgins, Chase, Boyd, um, contributing. Oh, and Mixon, almost forgot Joe Mixon there. But with all of them contributing on offense, we might be able to get something going there. On defense, of course, our corners are pretty good with Chidobe Awuzie and Mike Hilton. Trey Waynes is injured, unfortunately, so that's not good. We do have a couple like mad corners to back him up, I guess. Uh, the defensive line is good. I mean, you got Larry Ogunjobi, you got Trey Hendrickson, you got DJ Reader, you got Sam Hubbard, you got in the linebacker core, you got Logan Wilson, Jermaine Pratt, Akeem Davis Gaither. You got a lot of potential breakout players, a lot of young players at that as well. Number 23, I think that's appropriate with a better performance within the Broncos. Yeah, it makes sense to me. And above the Bengals, the Chicago Bears at number 22. Um, they might have been higher if Justin Fields was starting. Quite honestly, that's my opinion on Andy Dalton right now. Um, but if Justin Fields was the starter for Chicago at this point, Chicago probably would have been in the mid tens, like 10 to 20 in that range. And they're playing the Rams this week, which only makes it worse because you have to deal with Ramsey and Donald. So, Fields, Robinson, Cole Kmet, Darnell Mooney as well. David Montgomery is there. Defense, underrated defense. The Bears do have an underrated defense, I think. Eddie Jackson. Of course, they got a sack attack, formerly of the Silver and Black, Khalil Mack, over there in Chicago to haunt opposing quarterbacks. So, I think the Bears will do okay against the Rams. Up next, Raiders on Monday Night Football against the Ravens. One of the best tight ends in football, one of the most promising tight ends in football. He video record just now. The Raiders going up against the Baltimore Ravens. I think, as I was saying, Darren Waller, one of the best tight ends in the league. Probably the second or third best, if I do say so myself. And you do have Derek Carr, quite an underrated quarterback. I mean, he's been underrated his entire career. Been putting up consistent numbers, good numbers at that. And I think the Raiders will have a good week one against the Ravens. Unfortunately, I do have them at 21 because of their dismal defense. But I think their offense shouldn't have that much of a problem, even with the Ravens' elite defense. Patriots up next at number 20 in the Week 1 power rankings. Going up against the division rival Miami Dolphins in Week 1. I had the Patriots so low because they their quarterback situation isn't great. That's basically why. And because of their wide receiver core. Mainly because of their wide receiver core, actually. Their quarterback situation, they're in good hands with Mac Jones, I think, at this point. We all know that Bill Belichick just is an insane, just an insane man. Can train any player, no matter how bad he is, to be insanely good. Like, if the Patriots signed Josh Rosen, the Pats would win a Super Bowl with Josh Rosen, man. I guarantee it. But anyway, just a side note, but Patriots with Mac Jones leading the force, with Nelson Aguilar, with Nelson Aguilar, you have Kendrick Bourne, you have the double, have the tight end duo with Johnny Smith and Hunter Henry, and you have Damian Harris, and quite a good offensive line. Even with the loss of Joe Thuney, they have a quality offensive line. Defensively, they made so many acquisitions. Matt Judon is one notable acquisition. Um, there's quite a bit more. Uh, they have an underrated cornerback in J.C. Jackson, and one of the best cornerbacks over the past decade, Stephon Gilmore, obviously. Um, their linebacker core, Dante Hightower, headlined by Dante Hightower at least. Um, their defense is good. They get so many interceptions and not as many sacks. So I don't know what to think of their defense because their defensive backs are really good with Gilmore and Jackson, but their pressure on the quarterback isn't there much. With this matchup against the Dolphins and their rather interesting offensive line, it should be a pretty easy matchup for the Patriots. I think the Patriots have a winning chance here. And I actually put the Dolphins right ahead of the Patriots. And many could argue with this. They could say the Dolphins were lower. But I believe in Tua. I believe that he's started to work out the kinks in his game. And Tua Tagovailoa will start to really, really develop this year. He'll have a breakout season for somebody his caliber. Uh, what was long overdue last year will be happening this year, is what I believe. For Tua Tagovailoa, have him at number 19. Uh, of course, week one, Will Fuller is suspended, obviously, but so they have to work with Devontae Parker, Jakeem Grant Sr., uh, and various others. So until week two, they don't have Will Fuller. But in week two, they will have Will Fuller, and as soon as they get him back, I think the passing attack will start to increase quite a bit. Oh, and they do have Mike Gesicki as well as Miles Gaskin. Their defense headlined obviously by Xavier Howard. Um, Man demanded contract extension, made him the highest cornerback in the league, highest paid cornerback. Uh, their linebacker core isn't great. With I think it was. Oh dang, why can't I remember? I mean, maybe it's just that bad, but I don't know. I do remember hearing that Devin McCourty, either Jason or Devin McCourty, got signed to the Dolphins. There's Javon Holland, the second-year man, uh, that was drafted last year at safety. They do have a little bit of a defensive line. I think it's pretty good. The Dolphins. This might be a pretty even game, I think, in Patriots versus Dolphins. The next up is the Cowboys versus the Bucks. You got Dak, you got Zeke, Amari, CD, Michael Gallup on offense. That's pretty dynamic offense, if you ask me. Zeke should have a bounce back year this season overall, and I think Amari Cooper will go off as well too. And their offensive line, of course, Zach Martin missing, but they still have Tyron Smith, Lyle Collins, and Connor McGovern isn't even a bad backup for Zach Martin. Defense, it's not bad. They signed Keanu Neal, lost Chidobe Awuzie to our Bengals. So that was a good acquisition by us, by the way. But yeah, Cowboys at number 18. Seattle Seahawks. This might come as a surprise to some of you, but as of right now, I studied their film and their depth chart a little bit, like a couple days ago, and First of all, their depth chart didn't have didn't have anything on. I mean, except for Carlos Dunlap, Bobby Wagner, and Jamal Adams, uh, it had a bunch of you know randos, if you know what I mean. But their offense is all they have. They have very dynamic offense, and you got Wilson, Metcalf, Lockett, Gerald Everett, even uh, Chris Carson is pretty good, and a bad offensive line, unfortunately. So that's why I had to rank the Seahawks lower. Their defenses bring them down a lot. Washington football team is up next, playing the LA Chargers this week. Um, Coming in at number 16, and right in the middle of the pack, right there. Um, Ryan Fitzmagic, Terry McLaurin, uh, Curtis Samuel fighting groin injury, but he's slated to be the number two. Of course, they signed Humphreys, Diami Brown drafted, um, and just one of the most exciting defenses in the NFL, I'd say. Chase Young is there. They have Jonathan Allen. They have, they have a bunch of sick corners as well. Kendall Fuller, Landon Collins, even though I think Landon Collins is a safety. But yeah, I get the point. Their defense will probably carry them to either a close game, a close loss to the Chargers, or they might inch out a win against the Chargers. You never know. Next up, I had number 15. I had the Cardinals facing the Texans. Their offense should be functioning pretty well, especially with the mobility of Murray and his arm, I guess. DeAndre Hopkins is there. AJ Green, new acquisition in the offseason. James Conner, not really good. Chase Edmonds, he's fine, but he needs a little bit more playing time to for us to know what he's really capable of. Uh, the Tennessee Titans defense is brutally bad, losing Malcolm Butler, ironically, to the Cardinals, and then Malcolm Butler retired. Uh, their best players on defense are like Kevin Byard, Bud Dupree. Um, they have Jeffrey Simmons, who I think young star. He's gonna start to take over the league along with other young defensive ends like Brian Burns. Um, but yeah, and whereas the Titans offense, I don't need to talk about it. It's insane. Tannehill, Julio, AJ Brown, Derrick Henry. Tight end not particularly good. I think the offensive line is decent also. I do, by the way, have the Titans inching out a win against the Cardinals. Steelers at number 14. They haven't lost much of their talent. They did lose Bud Dupree, obviously, to the Titans, but they still have Big Ben. They still have Chase Claypool, who I think will lead the charge for the Steelers. Chase Claypool, that is. Deontay Johnson is a good number 2, and I don't like that. Juju Smith-Schuster is number 3, I guess. There's Eric Ebron. There's Pat Freiermuth even. Najee Harris, the rookie running back. What a freak athlete he is. He should have a good year this season too. Defense, one of the best in the league. One of the best pass rushers in the NFL. And T.J. Watt. You got one of the best safeties, Minkah Fitzpatrick. You have a decent cornerback duo, and that's a good team. I think they will still lose to the Buffalo Bills because their offense is unstoppable. The Bills is, and the Bills' defense is not even bad. So, yeah, Vikings facing my Bengals this week. I do think they will probably get the win against us, probably putting them ahead of the Steelers. So that's a big bet. The Vikings, in my mind, have an easier matchup against the Bengals, rather. Justin Jefferson, there's Adam Thielen, there's obviously Kirk Cousins, who's very smart with the ball. Kirk Cousins is on defense. Defense, what an underrated defense, man. Last year, everybody was saying the Vikings were bad and their defense was bad. That's because most of their starters were injured. But sans injuries, their defense is Michael Pierce, Dalvin Tomlinson, Daniil Hunter, just all like the first three names that I just listed, insane. Anthony Barr, Eric Kendricks. You even have Patrick Peterson, and of course their tight end Irv Smith out for the year with a getting a meniscus surgery or something, I think. So they did sign Chris Herndon. They traded for Chris Herndon, but I think they will probably get the dub against the Cincinnati Bengals this week. New Orleans Saints up next. Will probably lose to the Packers this week by a little bit. Uh, Winston going to be launching the ball downfield to his receivers, who are Traquan Smith and Marquez Callaway. Alvin Kamara, one of the best running backs in the league. You have Adam Troutman, tight end out of Dayton. That's what I like to hear. Dayton. Yeah, that's I really love Dayton University. I love all the universities around it, and I liked Adam Troutman coming out of Dayton. So I think he'll start to improve a lot more. And their defense, obviously, quite elite. One of the best in the league, obviously. You have Cam Jordan. Obviously, they did lose Trey Hendrickson, so minus some sacks, lost him to the Bengals. Uh, anyways, Cam Jordan, Marshawn Lattimore. You have even Malcolm Jenkins is fine. Marcus Williams, C.D. Deuce, C.J. Gardner Johnson, Chauncey. Man, pick a name, my guy. C.J. Gardner Johnson. And they did get Quan Alexander, I believe, so it's good. 49ers, one of the best defenses in the league. Detroit Lions offense should not be functioning too well against them, as I did put them on the bottom of the list at number 32. 49ers up at 11. The only concern I had with the 49ers here was the quarterback rotation type thing. Decent wide receiver core with Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk. Even Richie James can contribute sometimes. They have just infinite running backs, man. They have Raheem Mostert, Trey Sermon, Jeff Wilson Jr. They had Wayne Gallman for a little bit, then they released him and the Falcons picked him up. But that's another story. Infinite running backs, obviously, that's Kyle Shanahan's thing. George Kittle, arguably second best tight end in the league. Yeah, 11 is appropriate. Indianapolis Colts at 10. Elite defense. And one of the most underrated slot corners, probably one of the best slot corners, in fact, in the league, Kenny Moore. They also do have DeForest Buckner, acquired from the 49ers a year or two ago. What a trade that was for the Colts. Carson Wentz, obviously, this season picked up and traded from the Eagles to the Colts. I mean, I think T.Y. Hilton's on IR, so Michael Pittman should be their number one. Paris Campbell, if he can't get injured, he might be fine. Mo Ali Cox and Mo Ali Cox and who else at tight end? I think that's their tight end. Oh man, I think I'm missing somebody there. But yeah, they don't have that good of a team. Their offense is pretty lackluster, but their defense is really good. Chargers, Justin Herbert, Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler. That's a good trio right there. Really good. Mike Williams, not even a bad wide receiver too. You have on the defensive end, you have Joey Bosa, You have Derwin James. You have Chris Harris. Even pretty good. I think they should fare well against the football team. Cleveland Browns up next against the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs will obviously continue their dynamic offense. They have Mahomes, Kelsey, Hill. It's unbelievable, man. Cleveland Browns though, power run heavy offense with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, mostly Nick Chubb actually, uh, and tight end Austin Hooper. Not particularly exciting. Defense, Miles Garrett. You could argue that he's the best pass rusher in the NFL. If not Aaron Donald or Khalil Mack or T.J. Watt, then Miles Garrett. You could say. Uh, Denzel Ward is there. Ronnie Harrison underrated. He's there. You have Grant Delpit. He's a fine safety. Sione Taki can make a couple plays, as you saw last year. Number 8 for the Browns. Tennessee Titans versus the Arizona Cardinals at number 7. Obviously, we went over their roster while talking about the Cardinals. I think they'll latch out the win against Arizona. Baltimore, Monday Night Football, obviously, against the Raiders. Number 6 in the power rankings. Ravens, I put. Just behind the Los Angeles Rams, who are coming up next, by the way. Lamar Jackson should, should burn the Raiders' defense with his legs and his, pretty good throwing skills. Mark Andrews is a big target. Hollywood Brown, I expect Hollywood Brown to have a bounce back here, and one of the best defenses in the league in the Ravens with Marlon Humphrey, Marcus Peters, as well as they have Derek Wolfe, Calais Campbell. Great defense. LA Rams obviously up next. Number 5 in the power rankings. We're in the top 5 now. Jalen Ramsey, Aaron Donald, like you can't compete with them at much at all. Versus going up against Chicago this week, they shouldn't have that much of a problem shutting Andy Dalton down. And their offense with Matthew Stafford added now, Cooper Kupp, Tyler Higbee, Robert Woods, they should be rolling. Packers going up against New Orleans, playing in Jacksonville because of, unfortunately, of Hurricane Ida over in New Orleans. But number 4 in the power rankings, Green Bay. I think they should be able to get a win against New Orleans, especially with the elite skill of Aaron Rodgers. And they don't even have a bad defense. The Packers don't. Their defense is fine. Third on the list with power rankings, the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, one of the best QB wide receiver duos in the NFL, and quite a good defense headlined by Tre'Davious White. You have the Kansas City Chiefs at number 2. You don't need to talk about the Chiefs. Their defense could be a little bit better, but that doesn't hinder the fact that their offense is elite. And number 1, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the power rankings for Week 1. Facing off against the Dallas Cowboys. I think that Tom Brady, there's too many weapons on the Bucs to not win. I mean, you got Tom Brady, obviously. You got Leonard Fournette, Ronald Jones. Not a bad running back duo there. Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown, Mike Evans, Scotty Miller even at times could show out. Gronk, OJ Howard. That's great. And their defense, they retained everybody from the Super Bowl. So there's no point in saying that they're going to be worse than what they were last year. Yeah, I mean, it's just obvious, man. And that's all I have for today. So that's all I have for today. In the NFL Power Rankings for Week 1. Thank you all for watching. I really appreciate the growth we're getting on this channel recently. We've grown quite a lot since we've started. Just We started a couple months ago, I believe. We already have 35 subscribers. That's good, actually. That's pretty good. Um, Thank y'all for supporting us, and I hope y'all have a great rest of your day. And peace out, as always.